All right, we're going to get started. The notice requirement provided for the open public meeting law has been satisfied. Notice properly given, said notice having been transmitted to the Courier News on Tuesday, January 12th, 2021, as well as posting on the city website. Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Present.
McKenna,
Present.
McCray,
Present.
Mills Ransom,
Present.
Welch,
Present.
Vice President Good,
Present.
Council President Hockaday.
Present.
Mr. President, we have all members present in a quorum.
Thank you, sir. May I have a motion to approve the following minutes as presented? It was our reorganization meeting of January 6, 2021.
Moved.
Any questions?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, the minutes are approved. We now move to discussion items. The 2021 City Council assignments have been established. We just ask that all council members take the time to review and notify, and the clerk will notify all proper boards and offices. Google can be so intrusive sometimes.
Council President, can you repeat that last part that you said?
Sure.
Thank you.
I just indicated that all the council assignments have been established. So just take the time to review who your name is on the council list. The clerk will send that to you, and also clerk will also notify all the boards and departments, divisions regarding those assignments. That's all. Okay, we'll now move to consideration of public hearing, second reading and final passage. And starting with, well, with nothing for that. So we'll move to public comments for resolutions, motions, and ordinances to be introduced this evening. A total of 30 minutes has been allocated for the same. If you wish to be heard, hit the hand icon to be recognized. You'll be unmuted. Give your name and address for the record. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. The floor is now open. Okay, Mr. Priano, unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Timothy Priano, Martine Avenue. I'm calling stating in regards to the resolutions. We are all still going through COVID. So many people are still unemployed. People are barely making it. And we have on our list of corporate counsel and Department of Finance, we've raised fees. We are spending money that we really don't have or plan on. Many people are unemployed. They don't know how long their jobs are what jobs they have now will last, but we need to be tightening our belts right now. This is getting to be painful. What will happen if we don't start tightening our belts? Taxes will go up. People will start to be in default. We are still waiting to hear with, I see that the mayor is going to give consent for appointment to Plainfield PMUA. We have still not seen any reduction in our rates, but our reduction in our service has been. This has got to be addressed. The council has to really tighten our belt. We won't be able to make it through this year. There's not going to be a bailout for anybody in their homes. They lose their jobs. They don't have much going for them. We need to cut back on spending, and it does not look like spending is being cut back. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the queue?
No one else is in the queue.
Okay, hearing and seeing none. Have a motion to close public hearing? Public comments?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
The opposition or abstentions? Public comments is now closed. We'll next move to resolutions. Are there any comments on Council Resolution 44-21? Hearing and seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, this resolution is approved. Okay, Mr. Clerk, will you please proceed with the reading of the resolutions?
Resolution 4521, granting advice and consent of the appointments of the Plainfield Municipal Utilities Authority.
Okay, are there any questions?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Davis? Please.
Do we know how many people applied to become a commissioner for the PMUA, or is it just the people who are on the resolution were the only people who applied to be a commissioner? Do we know that information?
It is my understanding that these are the only applicants, these positions at the PMUA at this time.
Thank you.
However, I will double check, but I believe that is all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other council members have questions or comments?
Yeah.
Councilman McKenna?
So, we went through this last year and I made probably the same comment that I'm going to make now is that we're asked, we have oversight over the PMUA and it's limited, but we do have some oversight over the PMUA. And one of the areas that we have oversight is for advice and consent of commissioners. And yet again, we're supposed to not nominate, we're supposed to vote on commissioners. We don't have resumes. We don't have them, as far as I can tell, logged in to answer our questions. We don't understand what it is they've done in the last term that they served. We don't know what they want to do in the term that they're going to be voted on for. So we're derelict in our duty here. We actually have a responsibility here and we need to act on it. And we're not doing it. We've continued to fail at this. The PMUA, other than the last 6 months with the deer hunt, the PMUA is probably a strong number 2 for the number of emails and calls that I get from residents. And it has to do with the rates. It has to do with the decline in the service. It has to do with a host of issues with PMUA. It's one of the residents' largest non-deductible costs. And it just spirals into an abyss. I mean, at some point this year, they were not even recycling and they got in trouble for that by the county because they were sending everything and burning it. So, we're derelict in our duty here and we have blame for not holding them accountable and enforcing the oversight that we have. And I think, for us to just vote on these individuals with no resumes, no chance to have a conversation with them. And Council President, you and I had a conversation after last reorg meeting, or maybe it was the second meeting after the reorg, and talking about, just having conversations about PMUA and holding them accountable. And we haven't done it. And so I'm not going to vote for any of these individuals and all of them I know, but I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I've been to the meetings and I don't see anything happening. I don't see the rates going down. I don't see the service improving. I see it declining and the cost keeps going up. And we're doing all these things for other communities and Fanwood's commingling. We don't commingle. It's just nuts. It's nuts. And it's one of the biggest issues we have in the city that annoys residents and they can't even deduct the expense. So I think we're out of line for even proceeding with this item.
Thanks for your comments. Any other council members want to have questions or comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Yes.
Okay. Clerk, just for clarity of record, can we have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
No.
Gray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
No.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
5 in favor, 2 opposed, resolution passes.
Okay. Okay, clerk, we need resolution R 4621.
Resolution 4621, authorizing a final appropriation for legal services for Ruderman and Roth LLC.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis, please.
So this is more of a question for the Director of Finance. Since these were expenditures for the end of last year, how does that work in terms of the budget? Does it go into the 2020 budget or does it move over now into the 2021 budget?
Director?
Oh, give me a second. I will have to look at that one and see which account we're charging it to. But this should be coming out of
Council.
2021. But let me look at the resolution and tell you. Well, I can't pull it up.
I believe it's coming out of Corporation Council budget.
Yes,
It
I
is.
know which department it's coming out of. I was just really talking about budget years because they were for services at the end of last year.
It looks to me as if it's coming out of the 2021 budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council members?
I have questions.
Go right ahead, Councilman.
You know, we had this conversation in December, and as we allocated additional funds to additional law firms for the legal defense, mostly around labor, and I had asked for a report for a trailing 5 years on the spend, and I haven't gotten it yet. And this goes to the same problem because we're going to get, you know, we had a zero budget last year, which I agreed with, the zero budget. I didn't agree with the way we got to it because we got to it with COVID cuts, and all those things are going to come back at some point, and then we're going to have an issue. And one of my issues is that we have this exorbitant expense on settlements and legal fees. And one of the things we don't have is insight, unless we want to dig through multiple years, and some of us were not even on the council for all those years, to go through the settlements and the allocations for various legal expenses. So I had asked for a report for trailing 5 years so that we could see the trend in what we're spending on legal fees, because we're coming into the budget season pretty soon. And at some point we need to get a handle on this, because we're spending a lot of money with attorneys and you know, sorry, Mr. Mancello, but that's not what we're here to do. Our goal is to not spend that money and to not have issues where we have employees having grievances and suing. And I know to some extent those are just a name of the game and par for the course, but these settlements are getting crazy, and we're constantly, you know, we have unexpected and unusually extensive legal proceedings. Well, we have those all the time because for some of these law firms, we've had multiple resolutions within a year to add allocations to their budgets. So my question is, where is that report so that we can have an informed decision on this? Because otherwise we're just voting on nonsense here.
Well, Councilman, I do not have a 5-year report for you. However, I can attest that to the fact that this is an approximately an $85 million corporation. Our legal budget is approximately 0.5% of the entire budget. I challenge anyone to find a corporation of like size where the legal budget is that small. We have areas that require legal expertise and guidance on a daily basis. We have hundreds of employees. We are subject to civil service regulations. which are incredibly onerous and require that we adhere to the rights of employees at every step. Without having this guidance, the city would be at a standstill on redevelopment projects, on tax appeals. We help guide the city and we help the city move forward as a legal group. Our budget has remained relatively flat over my tenure as corporation counsel. But as an entity of our size, with the employees that we have, we require guidance and we do get sued, as any entity of our size would. So we are not out of the ordinary. And I'm proud to say that our budget has remained relatively flat for the time we've had it. And I can provide you, I have the numbers from last year's contracts to this year's contracts. Most are in line with last year. Some have decreased based on the need. So,
and that's great. And I get that there are lawsuits, and I get that we're an $85 million corporation. But we also have settlement costs in there. So we don't know where those align with the rest of the world. And most of us don't know where any of this aligns because we don't have the data in front of us. So while I realize you don't have a report at your fingertips that has a trailing 5 years of the various legal expenses, I asked for that. So that was something I didn't think you could just pull out of your computer and send to me. That was something that you needed time to put together. And it's been 2.5 months. So I would like that. And if you could get that to me, if you need another 3 weeks, then that's fine. But you know, I asked for it, so I would like that.
I understand that, Councilman McKenna, and I'm not disputing that. Just saying that the legal needs of the city of Plainfield will, regardless of a 5-year report, the request for allocation that we've given would not change. Because the needs we have today are the needs we have today, and they're not the needs we had 5 years ago.
So I'm gonna just push back on that a little bit, Mr. Mantello, because what happens here is that we get resolutions that say, give us another 20,000, give us another 15,000, give us another 85,000. What we don't really ever see, and what the council members should see, and what the public should see, is that why are we doing this, and what is the trend, and why do we have these lawsuits, and how many of these grievances and lawsuits and settlements are valid, and how many of them are not, and how many of them are valid because we are managing inappropriately and we need to have some sort of controls over that. So there's more to this than somebody files a lawsuit and we have to defend it. Sometimes we're putting ourselves in a position where we're creating lawsuits. So what I would like is to have that data, because we're a data-driven world. I appreciate the fact that you're off the cuff giving me those numbers, but I need the actual numbers. And I would appreciate it if you need a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, that's fine.
The only thing I'd add, Councilman McKenna, if I could though, is that when it comes to settlements, there's information that you have that the public does not have. Right. So it would be misleading to say that we just settle cases without information. You as a councilman do receive a report detailing the facts of every lawsuit that we recommend to settle. And our recommendation, we discuss potential exposure and we make a recommendation to you. Ultimately, it's your vote. But to say that those settlements are made without all the facts, I don't think would be accurate.
Then it wouldn't be accurate. And if you go back, I didn't say that. So the reality is I'm aware of what the settlements are because I do get the reports. What I'm concerned about is the escalation of those settlements and that they're getting out of control. So, if you give me that info, that'd be great.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from council members? If not, I'll. Go ahead.
And are we just on this one resolution, or are we going through all of the corporation council resolutions at one time?
One by one.
Okay, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All right, any opposition or abstentions? Okay, this resolution is approved. Clerk, read the next resolution.
Resolution 4721, authorizing the award of a professional service agreement with Willets, Goldman, and Spitzer.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis, please.
So Mr. Corporation Counsel, in these agreements, so this is probably going to answer all the questions. It speaks to having I guess like a bill of services, if I'm understanding it correctly, before they're done, when we then like when you come back and ask for those appropriations, we should have like a bill, if I read that correctly, of like what they're going to be charging us for.
That's correct, Councilwoman. So, so if the contract were to be approved tonight, if Wilentz, Goldman, and Spitzer does work for the city, let's say in the context of redevelopment, which is one of the areas they're being approved for, they will submit a bill for their services. Generally, it's on a monthly. And then my office will be authorized to pay it up to the appropriation which you give tonight, which we are requesting 25,000.
And then if they go over that appropriation and you come to us for another appropriation, then they should have presented us with a bill. So we're not doing like we did with Ruderman and Roth, where we're paying for services that they already performed. If I read it correctly, we should be getting that bill before those services are performed. Is that correct?
Yes. So generally what happens is when I recognize when a vendor is getting close to their appropriation and the year's not over, I generally track that and would come back to council recognizing that there's more months in the year and the appropriation's been exhausted, and request that ahead of time. However, with the unlikely case of Ruderman and Roth, we got to the end of the year and their last bill was the one that put them over, which required me to put it on for this agenda. So generally, as it comes up in the middle of the year, I would just come back to council before they continue work.
If I'm hearing and reading everything correctly, this kind of speaks to Councilman McKenna's point of making sure we know what's going on. So if for this year, can we make sure that if we're supposed to see whatever documents we're supposed to see for these appropriations based off of these agreements, can we just make sure that happens? So if it's like supposed to be a bill ahead of time, like, hey, this is what we're going to need this next appropriations for, can we just have that information ahead of time?
I think so. If I understand you correctly, Councilwoman, the bills are received in my office and are processed, and they're part of the bill list. So that all the bills, if we get close to an exhaustion of an appropriation, I have no choice but to come back to council if I want to continue using that vendor. So we try to do that as timely as we can, but we wouldn't pay a bill without an invoice from a law firm, and that is, all invoices are, public documents to the extent that they're not attorney-client privilege.
Okay, so what I think I'm asking for is those invoices to come with those resolutions for more money to be appropriated to them. If I'm understanding what Councilman McKenna is asking for, because that doesn't seem unreasonable if that's what he's asking for when we make these appropriations for more money. I think all of that seems reasonable because I think he does have a point. If I'm understanding correctly, I may not be understanding what he's asking for.
I think I heard something different because I didn't think that Councilman McKenna was disputing that they actually submitted bills. I think what Councilman McKenna was asking for was he wanted to know, why do we budget what we budget? Why is the overall Corporation Council budget the number that it is? And wanted to look at a 5-year trend. That's my understanding. I didn't think there was an issue about the work actually being invoiced, if that's correct.
Yeah, I don't know that the process would allow for us to approve every invoice that comes in. So I'm not looking for that. I mean, what we're approving here is for council to spend 85,000 or 35,000 or 25,000, the administration and corporation council, on these attorneys for various needs as they arise. We're not specifically getting into the what fors at this point. I'm more interested in what the what fors were, the trailing 5. So does that help?
Oh, listen, it's all good. I wasn't hearing what you were saying. It is clear to me. I take my comments back. Continue.
Any other council members like to chime in? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, this resolution is approved. Clerk, next motion.
Resolution 4821, authorizing the award of a professional services agreement with Ruderman and Roth LLC.
Questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, can I have a motion in a second?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition
Aye.
or abstentions? This resolution is approved. Clerk, next motion, please.
Resolution 4921, authorizing the award of a professional services agreement with Kaloji and Simmons.
Questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved. Clerk, next motion.
Resolution 5021, authorizing the award of a professional services agreement with Vernone, Coughlin, and Mancello.
Questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
So how exactly does that work? So is there like two separate agreements, one for, because we approved one for you and then it's one for the firm in which you work at? And then do you delineate the work to the people at your firm? Is that how that works?
In part, Councilwoman, there's an agreement for my services as corporation counsel, subject to a contract that was approved last month. However, my firm has been litigating cases for a number of years. We are the primary litigation firm. So that litigation work is subject to the appropriation that is on the agenda for this evening. That is separate work.
Thank you.
Any other?
I just have one question that
Go right ahead.
and maybe this goes back to 49-21 versus 5021. Which one of these resolutions covers the cost for the Bierstadt defense?
That's mine. That would be this resolution for litigation defense. My firm is currently handling the appeal in the Bierstadt matter.
And what is that? What significant percentage of that 75,000 is that?
Well, it's hard to say what the future will hold. The money has not been expended. So I can't give you a percentage of the total. All I can say is that, you know, the appeal has been filed and we are awaiting argument. So I don't think it would be a large percentage, given that most of the work has been done already. But I can't break it down any more than that at this point.
Further questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, can I have a motion and a second?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved. Clerk, next motion, please.
Resolution 5021, authorizing the award of a contract with Joseph Wenzel, Esquire.
Questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, can I have a motion and a second?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved. Clerk, next resolution.
Resolution 5221, authorizing the award of a professional services agreement with McManaman, Scotland, and Bauman.
Questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, may I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or opposition? Hearing and seeing none, this resolution is approved.
Resolution 5321, authorizing the award of a professional services agreement with Goldenberg, Mackler, Sage, Mintz, Pfeiffer, Bonchi, and Gill.
Questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
5421, authorizing the award professional services agreement with Wisniewski and Associates.
Questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 5521, authorize appropriation for NW Financial Group for professional services.
Questions from council members regarding this resolution? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
moved,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 5621, authorizing the transfer of appropriations in the calendar year 2021 municipal operating budget.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 5721, authorizing approval to cancel the 2021 taxes billed due to a 100% disabled veteran exemption.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
moved,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Any abstentions or opposition? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 5821, establishing delinquent tax and assessment interest rates and penalties.
Questions from council members?
I do. I have just a comment.
Sure.
You know, so the way I read this resolution is that we're voting to charge 8% interest per year for the first $1,500 in delinquency, 18% a year for everything over that first 1,500. In addition, we're going to have a penalty of 6% on delinquencies in excess of $10,000. So coming off of a pretty miserable 2020, and so far 2021 is a little rough too. We're going into some pretty uncertain times, so we're really going to take it out on individuals in our community who may be losing their jobs or struggling or having difficulties, and we're going to the caching business and charging them rather usurious fees, if you ask me. I mean, this is not almost, this is a profit center. And I'm just uncomfortable with this at this point in time. I don't know that I'd ever be comfortable with it, but at this point in time in the world, I'm not comfortable with going after our fellow residents in this regard.
I have a question.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman.
Director West, do you know how many people in our tax rate are delinquent in their taxes? And about how many people would be affected? And are these mostly single family homes that are affected, or are these developments or apartments?
Oh, first and foremost, what I would tell you is that these tend to be, a combination of both. The majority would be single family homes, but there are certainly multi-families and even some apartments and commercial buildings that are delinquent. The last time I checked, there were about 300 properties that were, being focused on in terms of delinquency. But when you look at the tax sale that we went out on, there were, I think we started with 1,800 properties and ended up with less than 1,000 that went out for tax sale. And many of those were on the basis of PMUA charges that get applied through us. So they were the majority of the delinquencies that we have each and every year. Are the PMUA charges, but it's something we do pay a lot of attention to. And we're also required through all of the statutory requirements to send out many notices to people with regard to delinquencies. But these are the same rates that we've had in place for for several years now and have made no changes. And, that's why we brought them forward again. And we do recognize the times we're in, but I can tell you that the public has been very responsive with regard to the level of tax payments that were made last year.
I have a follow-up question. So with a tax sale, somebody can purchase, like they can pay the back taxes on somebody else's home, and then eventually, how does that work? And how does that work in conjunction with the current eviction moratorium? So like if you purchase somebody's delinquent taxes during a tax sale, can you then like basically kick them out their house?
There's a statutory requirement for how long they need to have that in place. And so, homeowners have at least 2 years in which to recover their properties before, someone who buys a lien can take them to foreclosure.
And the moratorium does not cover foreclosures. Am I correct?
That is, the moratoriums don't come into play with regard to this particular situation.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Welch.
I just have a comment. We have to consider COVID. We have to consider how it's affected people that are working, people who, yes, maybe still have a job, but have been reduced in hours drastically. It's not that taxes are not a priority, but people still need to be able to take care of their children, provide for themselves. So I think that we are in a position to make some changes. And this is an area that we need to consider making a change.
Any other questions or comments from council members? Okay, hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion?
Mr. Clerk, I'm trying to look at the resolution again as we're speaking. It is not working on the website.
That's correct. That's correct.
So I can't even reference it now before we vote on it.
It was working prior to the meeting. I'll have to take a look again. You want to try refreshing it?
Oh, it works now. Thanks.
Look at that. You're welcome.
Okay, hearing and seeing no additional questions from council members, do we have a motion and a second? Do we have a motion and a second? Okay.
Council President,
Clerk, you are muted. All right, I can hear you now.
I said without a motion, this resolution would fail for the lack of a motion.
Sure, I can entertain a motion to table the motion, if you prefer that.
I move that we table the matter. So yeah, I move that we table it to the next meeting.
We have a second.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor? Table.
Aye.
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 Any oppositions or abstentions? Okay, this matter is tabled. Clerk, next resolution.
Before you move on, can I ask a question?
Sure, Director.
It's now been tabled, but we would need guidance to know what it is that would move forward if we brought it back. Because we can't now manage delinquencies or anything else without approved rules and regulations.
Well, we just allocated money for Mr. Mincello. He can help you with that.
Yeah, I think we'll have to have a meeting with council members and look closer at the resolution to figure out what are numbers that council would accept and approve.
All right.
So, we'll have to, perhaps the administration should circulate a draft of an amended resolution perhaps that the council would accept.
Council President, what time frame are we working with here?
The next meeting,
The next
We
meeting?
meet once a month, so.
yeah, next meeting. So, but we should certainly have the draft of what the administration is proposing, certainly within a week or two. We want to have adequate time to hash out.
Actually, I think by statute, as was clarified by Mr. Mantello, they have 48 hours before the meeting. We tried.
Well, not that. I'm just saying in terms of, some type of negotiations. I'm not talking about the actual resolution, but just a draft. Just a suggestion. Okay, clerk, can you move to the next resolution?
Yes, Council President. Resolution 5921, authorizing approval for the cancellation of small credit and balances on various tax accounts.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
How is there no fiscal impact if we're canceling balances? Can you just kind of explain that?
Well, we're talking about plus or minus up to $10, to have the authority to make decisions as to whether or not we give them a credit or a debit. So you're not talking a lot of money, which is why it basically says no fiscal impact. You're talking about little to no money. And it'll cost us more to try to administer those situations than make a decision.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 6021, establishing a cancellation fee for lien redemptions.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none.
Actually, I have one question.
Okay, right ahead, Councilman.
How does one go about, how does this get paid? How does somebody come in and they have to do a lien redemption? What does that process look like when you walk into City Hall?
They go to the office of the tax collector to redeem a lien. And before it's approved, it ultimately goes to the county. The county is the approving authority and charges the city a fee. So that's the reason for this, is that we have to pay the county.
And how does one pay?
Pay cash. I mean, it depends on what we're doing, but if in the tax collector's office, they can pay in cash, check, they can pay any way they choose to.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
Second.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
You didn't even,
Yeah.
vote.
in favor.
I didn't say all in favor, aye, did I?
No, you didn't. You were just looking for somebody saying no.
Okay, apologies, and thanks for keeping me honest. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, this resolution is now approved.
Resolution 6121, authorizing the city of Plainfield to enter into contracts with certain state-approved vendors. This is for public safety equipment.
Looking for questions from council members regarding this resolution.
I just have one kind of a broad one. Well, the first comment is regarding 6121, is that the Schedule A that was attached is, pretty much like reading computer code. It doesn't really say what anybody's purchasing. However, if one reads those things closely with resolution 61, 62, all the way to 65. I don't think 65 included any. Some of these look like capital improvement expenses. I mean, we're talking fleet vehicles, it looks like, and heavy equipment and items that are of a certain dollar amount and last more than five years or more. So, you know, in essence, we're authorizing unless my math is wrong, $3.2 million on a bunch of kind of, you know, a broad section of purchases. And a lot of them do look like capital improvements to me.
Well, some of them can be vehicles. You know, this is based on historically what we've done, but there are a lot of maintenance items in there. You have things like shot spotter. You've got the computer networks that exist, you know, and maintenance on HVAC systems and plumbing. So it's a whole host of things that these vendors happen to provide support to the city on. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to turn around and buy cars or anything else, because to make that purchase would have to come back before the council too. You know, but this just says that this is what we've historically done with these vendors. We're looking to use state-approved vendors as opposed to going out to bid, because we've gotten good service and pricing from these firms in the past.
So,
You know, but again, there's a whole other process, you know, in actually spending the money.
So when I look at an allocation on a Schedule A that has specific vendor with software upgrades, that's very specific about the software upgrades and the not to exceed figure in it, that money will not be spent without coming back before council. None of this.
I would have to add a caveat. It depends on the dollar value, you know, but software upgrade, you know, it depends on how much money it costs. If it's a $5,000 upgrade, we wouldn't be coming back before council.
But if I have a resolution in front of me that says, and I'm just going to pick one out here, for software not to exceed $93,000, and then I have a Schedule A that has, I don't know how many, we're on the 15, 16 items roughly, that have vendor name not to exceed dollar amount for each one of them, and then what it is that's being procured. You're telling me we're not authorizing the city to procure those items?
That is correct.
So nothing will be procured without coming back.
I wouldn't use the word nothing. The ones that you just pulled out would not, you know, would require that we take action and bring it back to council in order to actually get the authority to spend that kind of money.
And where would the limit be if I go through all those lists? What dollar amount would I look at that wouldn't be purchased?
Our threshold now is $44,000.
So anything above $44,000 has to come.
That's on equipment and those kinds of things. Like, you know, you heard from us a few weeks ago that in terms of professional services, you know, that threshold is 17.5.
Any other questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, may I have a motion and a second?
Moved.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 6221. This is for public works equipment.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
6321, and this is for fire equipment.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Move, Council President.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
64-21, and this is for purchasing office supplies and equipment.
Questions from council members?
I just have one quick question. Why do we have copiers listed on this? Didn't we just approve Purchase of a bunch of copiers?
Yes, but this also still now confirms the level of our commitment with Superior Office Systems. So we also have to manage our spend against them. So that one was what, a little over $2,000 a month, $24,000, but what we do based on what transpires this evening is we put into the system purchasing limits, against these vendors.
Didn't we approved the procurement of copiers, so that should have been put in the system based on that resolution, no?
Yes, but we're also telling you that vendor, is also one of our approved state vendors. So, yes, you approve them in terms of a contract to move forward to continue to provide copier services for the city, but as they are also a city approved vendor. And this is just one more step to recognize that we have a relationship with Superior Office Systems, and there's a limit to how much we can spend with them.
And that was not in that last resolution?
Oh, there was a spending limit in that resolution, yes.
But we're going to do it again, just to be safe?
It is a state approved vendor that we work with. So, you're talking about, two different groups, two different departments, basically working. But what we have to do is make sure that we don't exceed, for any reason, the total amount that's been approved for Superior Office or anybody else.
Any other questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
So moved.
Why isn't?
Who would like to second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions or abstentions? Hearing and seeing none, this resolution is approved.
521, this is for computer equipment.
Questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions or abstentions, make your presence known. Hearing and seeing none, this resolution is approved.
6621, authorizing approval for a street opening for 714 through 716 West 3rd Street.
Questions from council members?
I have a comment more than a question, and I want to commend the Public Works Department for when we do these street openings. I guess you all go back to make sure that they have repaved the street, and they have repaved it and it is even. And I appreciate that, because there's a town that I drive through where they only opened up part of the street and they kind of repaved part of the street and it is uneven. And I am glad that we do not have that problem here in Plainfield. So Mr. Dabney, your staff is to be commended for that.
I would also like to make a comment, please, to Council President.
Sure.
I basically, just to piggyback off of her comment, we've had problems in the past, and yes, there has been a big difference. So yes, I would like to echo that also to Director Dabney, and I'm pretty sure some of my other colleagues have also noticed the difference.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions, comments, or commendations from council members? All right. Hearing and seeing none, can I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 6721, authorizing the award of a professional services contract to Panoni Associates.
Question and comments or from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
So move.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 6821, authorizing the award of a professional services contract to Remington and Vernick engineers.
Questions or comments from council members? Hearing and seeing none on this screen, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? Hearing and seeing none, this resolution is approved.
Resolution 6921, authorizing change in order number 1 to Fisher Contracting.
I'm looking for questions or comments from council members. Hearing and seeing none on the screen, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Thank you. This resolution is approved.
Resolution 7021, authorizing a change order number 1 to Remington and Vernick.
Any questions from council members?
Yes, I have a question.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman Welch.
In reference to the Rushmore Park playground upgrades, and this is going to be a beautiful project, but I also was under the impression that the project was being covered by a grant. So now how is it that we have an engineer fee?
And that's a good question, Councilwoman. The fees are part of the project, the fees for the engineering. That's all part of it, what we have to do, the plans, etc. Okay, to keep everything going. It was the plans that put together by the engineers for the project. This is just part of what has to be done. Green Acres is requesting this, and that's where the grant came through. Green Acres is requesting things that we have to do here from an engineering standpoint.
Thank you for the clarity.
Actually, I thought that it wasn't part of the proposal. That's why they're asking for additional money.
But this, right, this is, I was just trying to answer your question, Councilman. Yes, this is addition to what has to be done. The Green Acres is requesting to be done in terms of the plans. That was not part of the original pack.
So when I read that letter on that Remington wrote saying what they needed to do, they essentially, from the time on the planning board, explained how they needed to take site plans and make different notations on them about what was existing, what they added, what was covered by this, what was included in that. And I'm kind of shocked that this plan, they never had any site plans for this. That wasn't ever part of their deal to have site plans for the improvements to that were to that extent, especially like now.
They do have site plans, but this is actual recording drawings that were never asked for, that they wanted for this, which requires more surveying to be done of the property again. They want another set of plans. And this came from Green Acres themselves, the request.
That's pretty
The original plans, there were plans for the original project, but this is something in addition to what was asked for by Green Acres, the record drawings.
Well, I saw that they asked for it. I just didn't see that what they asked for was particularly complex. But that's it.
Any other questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 7121, authorizing approval to amend Resolution 31620 to delete a property maintenance lien.
Looking for questions and comments from council members. Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? The resolution is approved.
Resolution 7221, authorizing the submission of an application to New Jersey Transit.
Looking for questions and comments from council members regarding this resolution.
I have a question.
Councilwoman Davis.
Director Dabney, do you know the annual cost of maintenance for these vehicles? And also, as we receive new vehicles, are we phasing out the old ones? Or are we just adding them and then we just have a fleet of vehicles?
Good question. As time goes on, we do try to phase out vehicles that get old to us, but this type of vehicle here is something that we always need with the buses and et cetera, for, for the seniors that we take around. But yes, in terms of maintenance, we do maintain our fleet in-house and take very much. So it's cost, it's cost effective to us to do what we do in terms of maintenance. We do maintain everything and keep records of all the equipment.
Right. So do we know what is the cost of maintenance for these vehicles?
Depends on what happens. It could be just just changing a battery or just basic tune-up because we carry no folks around. It's not nothing major. But if it gets to the point where that major, we'll look at the pricing and decide to get rid of the vehicle and auction it off. And this right here is just, and this was good about this. This helps us replace those vehicles that do become really old and antiquated. But right now, pretty much the fleet is okay. One bus we're looking in time to get rid of. So we do get another one that will help us offset that and add this to it. So we do monitor all the fleet and make sure we maintain all the vehicles. And if it gets to a point where it's not cost effective, of course, we'll look to auction them off.
So I want to be clear. My question isn't adversarial to why we shouldn't get them. It's more for edification of, just how much it's costing for us to maintain them. So I don't want you to think that I'm asking these questions because I'm against them, because as a former employee and as somebody who used to work with the seniors down at the senior center, I know that they love to get around and they love to travel. So there's my hope that post-COVID, they can get back to that. So it was more of a, a clarifying question as opposed to one that was adversarial.
And it's not a good question. That's why we do major preventive maintenance on all the buses that we have. Everything that gets to a point where it's not cost effective to maintain them, we'll look to auction them off. That's what we'll do with them, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Further questions? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Resolution 7321, authorizing the transfer of a financial and redevelopment agreement between the city of Plainfield and 803 South Urban Renewal LLC to new owners.
Questions from council members? Screen. Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Resolution 7421, approving qualified vendors and service providers.
Questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Council President, just a procedural matter. Resolution 8021 would have to be the next resolution, as the resolutions that follow that allows those providers to be awarded those contracts. So 80 would have to be approved prior to the rest of the resolutions under economic.
So let's do that one next.
Thank you. Resolution 80, approving qualified vendors and service providers for brownfield environmental engineering contractors and brownfields management contractors.
Questions from council members? Scanning. Seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved. Okay, clerk, go back in whatever order you determine.
Resolution 7521, authorizing the extension of an existing professional service contract to Pannoni and Associates.
Scanning the screen for questions from council members. Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? Raise your voice. Resolution approved.
Resolution 7621, authorizing the extension of an existing professional services contract to Remington and Vernon.
Scanning the screen for questions from council members. Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Moved.
Move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Resolution 7721, authorizing the award of a contract to CME Associates.
Scanning the screen for questions from council members. Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Resolution 7821, authorizing the award of a contract to the Lewis Consulting Group.
Scanning the screen for questions from council members. Hearing and seeing,
Just a quick clarification question, Council President.
Councilman, go ahead.
This one's worded a little differently from the other two that we're extending, but the contract number is lower than theirs. Are we extending this contract with Lewis Consulting? Does authorizing the award of it, but it already has the contract number, which ends in a 3, and the other ones are.
There is an error in the title of the resolution by identifying a contract number. It is the award of a professional services contract to Lewis and Consulting, and it's for the management of the Brownfield program. The other engineering firms are doing specific projects. They're not managing the Brownfield program and the other engineering firms.
So do we need to amend this resolution to get rid of that contract number?
Yes, we do.
And Councilman, I did check the body of the resolution, which is correct.
Okay,
Just the title that's incorrect. Yeah.
right, okay.
Yes, you're correct, Councilman McKenna. We do need to amend the resolution.
Okay, so you want a resolution, Council President, or a motion?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 078-21 with the modification that this is for the award of a professional contract and not the continuation, and contract number C1900003 should be removed from the resolution.
Okay, can we have a second to that? Is that acceptable to council?
Yes, second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? The resolution is approved as amended.
So, point of order for a procedural question. So if he amended it, don't we have to vote on the amendment and then vote on the new resolution? So should that have been 2 votes instead of 1?
I think it might have been.
Yes.
So the amendment carried.
Now we'll vote on the resolution as amended.
So
Second.
Yes, we just voted on the amendment. Now we need to vote on it as amended. Correct.
Totally moved and second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? The resolution is approved.
Resolution 7921, authorizing the award of a professional services contract to the Nishuane Group.
Scanning the room for questions from council members. Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Yes, and resolution 8021 was previously approved, so we'll move on to 8121, approving qualified vendors and service providers for certified arborist on an as-needed basis.
Questions for council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? The resolution is approved.
Resolution 8221, authorizing approval to apply and accept the Union County Department of Human Services grant funds for 2021.
Questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Director Brown, can you speak to how these grants will impact the city's residents? And also, I want to commend your division, some of whose budget is mostly reliant on grant funds, how they have continued this work even during the pandemic. But the question is, how do these grants impact residents?
So the 3 grants that are before the council today for approval deal with providing rental assistance to those residents who may need them. It could be up to 2 months of rental assistance, and it can also help with those who may need rental assistance to get an apartment. So depending on what the particular resident may need, these 3 grants will address that.
As a follow-up, has the city seen a need for rental assistance? And is the city anticipating the need when the moratorium for evictions is lifted?
Thank you, Councilwoman. Those are great questions, and it's something we've been grappling with for quite some time. My office and my department are very scared about what will happen once the moratorium is lifted. A lot of the residents in Plainfield are struggling, not just those who need rental assistance, but those who may also need mortgage assistance to deal with potential foreclosures. So yes, I do think that it is something that we have, we're concerned about. We're deeply, deeply concerned about. What was the first question again? I'm sorry.
What have you done to anticipate the impact? I don't remember.
Oh, okay. So I got it. So our residents, yes, we do have we do know that our residents will need and do need rental assistance, and basically by the numbers that come into our office, or not physically into our office, but contact our office. And so we're continually getting calls, not just from Plainfield residents, we're getting calls from outside of our boundaries. So we know the need is there. We can't certainly help those outside of our boundaries. We can just provide them with referral systems. But we are getting quite a few calls. It even come into my office directly for people who need assistance. It's not just with rental assistance, it's also with help with food and other things that we can provide.
I have a question.
Councilwoman Welch, please.
So right now, Director Brown, so right now, do you already have a waiting list for people that are in need? Let's say it's not just for rent or mortgage assistance, but just for utilities, food. Is there a waiting list?
That's interesting. So we don't necessarily keep a waiting list. What we do is we open it up again. We say that we no longer have money. We notify potential residents and clients of ours that we no longer have money. And then we also tell them when we anticipate more money coming in. We try not to keep lists because residents have the opportunity to go to other agencies who may have money to get their needs met.
And those who are in need can follow through on the website to get those applications to apply?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council members?
Yes, just to follow up from Councilwoman Welch's question. So for our residents who may not be tech savvy, what are other ways that they can reach the Plainfield Action Services office if they need these services?
Most of them call. And also, just as an aside, we work with a lot of partners around in Plainfield. And so if the residents are not tech savvy or need additional information, the partners will call us. The various social service agencies, they know how to get us and they will reach us and we will help. And that's how we certainly do the work that we do.
Okay. Hearing and seeing no additional questions, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Resolution 8321, authorizing approval to apply and accept the United Way of Greater Union County Emergency Food and Shelter Program grant.
Scanning the camera for questions from council members. Scanning the screen. Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Resolution 8421, authorizing approval to apply and accept a grant from the Union County Department of Human Services.
Scanning the screen for questions from council members. Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
And Resolution 8521, recognizing January as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month.
Questions from council members regarding this resolution? Councilwoman Davis.
Director Brown, I think I said it last year, but I want to commend you again for taking up the mantle of bringing awareness to human trafficking. Because this resolution is recognizing it as Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month, what information is your office or the administration going to put out about preventative measures or how to recognize human trafficking cases?
So throughout the month, and I know we've already started, we've been using social media and we've been using PCTV and those kind of avenues to put this information out. We also have been putting out the national hotline in case you want to report. Later this month, we'll be putting out kind of little scenarios of what you can do to help identify human trafficking. So that will go on, but we're not just doing it for January, we're doing it for the whole year. Because it's such an important thing, and City of Plainfield has actually been recognized for the work that we do in that area.
Wonderful, thank you.
Questions from council members, any addition? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved. We now come to ordinances on first reading. Clerk, will you please read MC 2021-01 by title?
MC 2021-01 is an ordinance granting Title 39 jurisdiction to the City of Plainfield over roads and parking lots located at the property known as 662 through 748 South 2nd Street, shown on the Plainfield City Tax Map as Block 112, Lot 9.01.
Are there any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis.
So this may be a question for the Corporation Council, but I received it earlier from a resident. What are the liability aspects of us granting Title 39 jurisdiction? Like if somebody falls or something, does that still fall on the property owner? Or does that somehow fall on the City of Plainfield?
There is no I'm sorry. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Councilwoman. There is no liability whatsoever for the city for establishing Title 39 jurisdiction. Merely allows our police access and the ability to write summonses under the traffic code. That's it. There is no liability for the city. Liability still remains with the property owner and not with the city.
Mr. Mancello, is this the conversation we had earlier?
It is, Council Vice President. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Questions, comments from council members? Okay, I will now entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second, clerk may I have a roll call?
Moved by Vice President Good, seconded by Councilwoman Mills Ransom. Roll call on MC 2021 Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
Ordinance has been introduced on first reading.
Okay. Clerk, please read MC 2021 by title.
MC 2021-02 is an ordinance granting Title 39 jurisdiction to the city of Plainfield over roads and parking lots at 1314 through 1326 South Avenue.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Moved by Vice President Good, seconded by Councilwoman Davis. Roll call on MC 2021-02. Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
Ordinance has been introduced on first reading.
Thank you. Clerk, please read MC 2021-03 by title.
MC 2021-03 is an ordinance, the city of Plainfield and the county of Union adopting the TODD South Redevelopment Plan Amendment dated November 5th, 2020.
Questions from council members?
Just have one question. What did this cost us to modify this amendment between legal fees and initial one?
Councilman, I would have to calculate that and get back to you
Okay.
related to that particular question.
Okay. If you could email that to me, that'd be great.
Okay.
Further questions from council members regarding this
Yes.
ordinance? Councilwoman Davis?
Moving forward, when we talk about block and lot numbers, would it be possible to have the street address or like what street it's on? That would be helpful.
Okay. I apologize if it isn't in the resolution. It's on the cover memo, but I'll just make sure it's in the title as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Further questions? I'll now entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Clerk, roll call, please.
Moved by Councilman McCray, seconded by Vice President Goods. Roll call on MC 2021-03. Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
That is unanimous. This ordinance has been introduced on first reading.
Clerk, could you please read MC 2021-04 by title?
MC 2021-04 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 16, Article 19, Section 8B, fines, fee fines with updated rates.
Okay, scanning the screen for questions from council members.
I have a question.
Sure. Go right ahead, Councilman.
Didn't we vote on this last year?
I can speak to that. You did. You're correct. You guys voted on this, but there was just a small typo in the ordinance. If you look at the lot numbers in the original, it said lot 5, 6, 8, and 8A twice. So it should have been, which it's now corrected, lots 1, 4, and 10 on instead of the double 5, 6, 8, and 8A.
Gotcha. So it's just a small clerical error.
It's just a typo, yeah.
Further questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
So moved.
second,
Clerk, may I have a roll call?
It was moved by Vice President Good, seconded by Councilwoman Mills Ransom. It's roll call on MC 2021-04. Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
No.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
yes,
Welch,
Yes.
President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. Resolution's been adopted on first reading.
Thank you. We have the Honorable Adrian O'Map here with us today. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for the recognition.
Yeah, do you have any words for us today?
Yes, Council President. I have two comments that I would like to make. One is that, as most of you know, we established last year the Plainfield COVID-19 Relief Fund, and we provided assistance to a number of our residents to help pay utility bills as well as rent. And so we're going to circle back with those individuals and provide some additional assistance from that fund because of monies that we still have in that fund. And so at this time, we will be going back and we know who we already made the awards to. We will provide some additional assistance, just like the federal government is providing some additional assistance through the CARES Act. We'll be doing the same thing from this fund. So that's one thing. The second item that I want to address is that I am aware that you opted earlier in the evening to table the resolution that is an annual occurrence as done based on state law to set the interest rates on delinquent taxes. And I think in your zeal to help property owners who you believe are facing difficult times and may not be able to pay their property taxes, I should tell you a couple of things. One is that the year ended December 31st, 2020. We realized a record tax collection rate. And so by so doing, those funds will go to surplus and will help the taxpayers that you're so eager to help. We were able to do that by collecting from almost every property owner out there. And we conducted a tax sale, an annual event, which is based on the same rates that are established each year to act as an incentive for investors to purchase delinquent taxes, as well as to encourage property owners to pay their taxes and not be subjected to a tax sale. So the very people that you wish to help, you may be hurting for two reasons. One is that you will not necessarily be able to attract investors to pay delinquent taxes. Two is that if people know that they don't have to pay their taxes without any penalties or interest, they'll be less inclined to pay their taxes. And number three is that by refusing to consider this item this evening, it is likely that if you were to stuck by your decision, that our collection rate would take a nosedive. Therefore, next year, the very people that you want to help, you will end up hurting because we would collect a significant amount less in property taxes, which would require us to increase what is known as reserve for delinquent taxes, which is like a bad debt reserve. And that would push taxes up next year beyond any doubt. So the very people that you're trying to help, you'll be hurting by not adopting this resolution, which is a long-standing practice across the entire state as allowed by law to serve as an incentive, one, for investors, and two, to push people to pay their property taxes. We did very well in 2020 in spite of the very difficult and challenging times that people were facing. People want to preserve their asset, the most significant one that most of us make in our lifetime, and so they ought to pay their taxes because they don't want to be subject to that penalty. And if you were not to reconsider this resolution, you'll be hurting those very people that you're so eager to help. And so I wanted to make this statement, and I wish you would reconsider the actions that you took earlier this evening. Thank you.
Council President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we revisit R05821, I do believe, Mr. Clerk. I do believe the statement earlier was that if we could hear from the administration clearly an explanation of this resolution, that we would table it to the next meeting. In light of this information, I'd like to make a motion that we revisit it and reconsider it.
Second.
The second, okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Are there any additional questions, comments, or clarification requested from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis.
Are we on a time crunch? Like if we don't pass this resolution today, does that mean we can't pass it next month? Or this is only a one-time, a year thing? So like if we don't pass it now, we can't pass it again until next year? Or if we table it, or if we continue to table it now, does that mean that we can then vote on it next month?
If you choose not to pass, this resolution is usually done at the beginning of the year, which enables the tax collector's office to know what he or she can do and must do in order to collect the taxes that are due and owed to the city. And so it is important that this be done at the beginning of the year, as it always is, so it gives clear guidance and directions to the tax collector. And the information isn't going to change. Everything that I just told you is going to be the same next week, next month, in June, and September. It's not going to change.
Council President, if I may.
Please.
There was a motion to reconsider. The motion's been moved and it's been seconded. That motion to reconsider supersedes the motion to table. So now we would need, after deliberation, after conversation, you would need a roll call on that motion to reconsider.
Okay.
So a clarification question. So now there's a motion to reconsider. So if that motion fails, does the motion to table still stand, or does there need to be a new motion to table if that is the pleasure of the council?
The motion to table would still stand.
Thank you.
Council President, in light of this information not even changing, whether it be 24 hours from now or in 6 months, I think the motion to reconsider is justifiable.
Well, with the motion's already been made.
I know. I was just making that statement, though. That's why I made the motion to reconsider.
Understandable, Councilman.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear from additional council members if they have any additional questions from the administration regarding this, or suggestions of what they would want to see, so that we can get that out again before I call for a roll call. Any other council member want to chime in?
Yeah, I've got a question. How many of the properties went to auction last year?
Ron, can you provide that answer?
16 properties were auctioned.
How many?
16.
No, the taxes.
To tax sale, we had, I think there were 800 total properties that went to tax sale. I think the key thing to say, though, is that we have done an effective job of, getting investor interest, that we only had to take back one property.
Okay, and of that 800, how many of those had PMUA on them?
The majority.
Okay. So this goes back to the very first topic on our agenda, was that we don't have much oversight over, execute our oversight over PMUA, and people are getting crushed by these things. 800 properties, rough math, what is that, 5% of properties in town? It's kind of a lot. And I don't know how 18%, I get the justification for it to entice for investment, and investors buy the taxes and the city gets the money. I get that. And I completely understand it. But I don't know how it helps somebody who's then got to pay that in order to get their lien back. So helps the city for sure. Helps the coffers for sure. Helps other taxpayers in the city. Absolutely. That 5% that's getting dinged for the 18% and the 6%. No, not really.
Mr. President, I do understand the concern on the part of Councilor McKenna, on the part of Councilor Davis, and on, the part of all of you. We feel and we have compassion for our neighbors, for the people who pay our salaries. The alternative is not a good one. And if you were not to adopt this resolution, the point that I made earlier is that our collection rate will take a nosedive, effectively creating a significant hole in our revenues. And the impact is not going to be felt this year that we're in, but it's going to be felt next year, because all the collection that is happening this year will go into the 2022 budget. And if we don't have the revenues to go into that budget, you're looking at a significant tax increase.
So for clarification, Mr. West, if we table it for 1 month, can you just kind of, I guess, explain how tax collection rates would nosedive in that 1 month? The impact?
This isn't about
No,
1
that's
month.
not what I'm suggesting. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Go right ahead, Director West. Please explain.
I guess I need clarification on, I guess, the extremeness of this nosedive by tabling this resolution for 1 month.
I think the thing that needs to be factored in is that we're not going to bring a whole lot of new information to the table in a month, 3 months, or 5 months. We won't be able to offer guidance, and we won't have any rules in place, for charging for any delinquencies. So, people that owe money today, if we don't have anything on the books, I'm not in a position to, charge for delinquent taxes. And when you start talking about revenues and reserve for uncollected taxes, they are critical, to the overall makeup. When you start talking about cash, yes, we would like to do more for the taxpayer facing lots of issues, but by the same token, we're also running a city. And when you look at the reserve for uncollected taxes, we run about 3.5% to 4%, with reserve for uncollected taxes, which means the other taxpayers have to pay that, make up that difference.
That's right.
So we need guidance, we need rules for how to run that office tomorrow. So every day that you put it off, there are no rules in place. No fees for delinquencies. And, it's not a good way to lead the city.
Director West or Corporation Counsel, do you know of any other town in the state that does not assess that fee?
None whatsoever, Council President. Just to reiterate the sentiments of both the mayor and Director West, if we aren't able to assess a rate on delinquent taxes, no one would be interested in purchasing any of these liens at tax sale. Hence, our reserve for uncollected taxes would have to increase. We'd have to make it up somewhere. And if we don't make it, If we don't have a rate for delinquent taxes, we're just going to have to make it up from the rest of the taxpayers. This is standard protocol in every municipality. It's the way to make ourselves marketable, and no additional months to address this issue would move that number. That number is set to make us as attractive as we can to the investment community. And that number is allowed by state law. So this is not a number that we've created out of whole cloth or out of thin air. State law allows us to charge the numbers that we're asking.
Yep. So it seems to me that the council members have a decision to make. And, you know, I hear the sentiment from council members and wanting to help residents in some way. And I would suggest, I'm not sure the way that this is going to go once we resolve, once we call for a roll call. But I hear council members calling out for any number of ways that the administration could provide additional relief to residents. I do appreciate the mayor indicating, you're talking about the COVID-19 relief fund. That is one way that at least we're providing relief to businesses. But I hear a sentiment from council members that they wish that there was a way that they could do more. And it sounded like that the vote was an attempt to see what they could do for council members to acknowledge the fact that we're in a pandemic. You know, I'm not certain that eliminating our ability to collect on tax liens or to charge interest on tax liens is the way to do it. I certainly don't want to cripple the city and its ability to continue with the good collection rates that we achieved last year. That's certainly a tool that I think that any city needs to have to be able to consistently collect on their taxes. You know, so with that said, I mean, I'm going to call the vote. I don't know how it'll turn out, but regardless of how it turns out, I'm hearing the council members loud and clear that they want to see what we can do to provide additional relief to homeowners, and I'm certainly with that.
Council President,
Point of order.
Right.
So what's on the motion that's on the floor now is not whether or not we vote on this resolution. But
Motion for
the
reconsideration.
floor is to reconsider the vote for this resolution.
Correct.
Thank you.
Motion for reconsideration. That's
I have
correct.
a
Let Councilman McKenna go first. He was next.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, because I think it's getting lost in the procedural stuff here, and that's probably my fault, but I get the point of these fees, and I understand the point of having investors buy these debts so that the city gets their money and then they own that debt. My issue is, and I keep circling back to that, is that there's two areas here that cause this. One is tax burden, and two is PMUA burden. And every year we have 800 to 1,100 properties in a tax sale, and the vast majority of them are PMUA. And yet we don't exercise any oversight. We just listen to the citizens complain about PMUA and the cost, and that it's not deductible on their taxes, and that the service just gets worse and worse and worse because they're doing all sorts of cuts without cutting any direct costs to the citizens. And that's the issue that we have here. You know, ultimately selling this debt and getting the money for the city, that's a standard process for anybody selling debt. But trying to affect why we have this every year is where we have control and oversight as a council, and we're not exercising it. It's budgetary, and it's getting PMUA, you know, their act together or blowing them up. I mean, it's just enough is enough with this routine. We keep doing this every year, and it's really not the 18% and the 6%. It's the fact that we got anywhere from 5 to 7% of our properties going through this every year. You know, at some point we got to start asking what we're going to do to try and fix this.
Questions, comments from council members? Any additional?
Yes, I have one final comment. This motion, had it not been tabled, would have failed anyway. So what I do find interesting is now council members want to reconsider it after the mayor comes on here and basically scolds the council about not about not considering this motion to begin with. That's pretty interesting to me. But this is only to reconsider it. So yeah, that's my comment.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Council President, please, I just have a point here to make. Let me make something perfectly clear. I don't feel as though I was scolded. I made a suggestion, I made a motion to revisit. And since we have done that, and it was second, more information has been administered throughout this segment of this meeting. So it was not, I don't feel that I was scolded. I thought it was my duty as a member of this governing body to revisit it so that we can hear more information about this. So I just wanted to make that statement. I don't feel scolded at all. I think we're all here. We all here to do a job.
Yeah. 1 second, man.
yes.
You know, I'd agree. I mean, I appreciate the additional information that came from the administration, and I think that's the reason why we tabled it, is because we didn't feel like we had enough information. There wasn't enough context or
Exactly.
regarding
Exactly.
the situation.
And I believe one of my colleagues, Council President, pardon me, said that we did not have the information and that we needed some more information from the administration. And when the administration made that available, I thought it would be a good idea to revisit the resolution that was on the agenda.
Okay. Mayor.
Yeah, just my final point on this, and I thought I heard what I heard, but Councilor Good confirmed by his comment that I heard the word scold. Please, my role, I will never even remotely convey or, seek to convey a scolding of the council. The council is equal to the administration, and I will never seek to scold the council. So
thank you. Appreciate
I am sorry that it came across that way to you, Councilor Davis. I am simply passionate about my work and the information that I have. It is my responsibility to share that information to the council. So scolding the council, absolutely not. I would not disrespect this august body in that way.
I have a question.
Councilwoman Welch.
The percentage on the back taxes that people are unable to pay, is it the state's highest limit?
The rates that are contained in that resolution are all taken directly out of the statute.
That's correct.
Thank you.
But you are correct, Councilwoman Welch, that the state does not allow more than 18%.
And we're charging right at that 18%, but will we have that option to lower that rate?
You know, typically what happens is these tax liens are auctioned. So it allows us to, what the people who buy these tax liens are fighting over is who will accept the lowest rate. So it can go up to 18%, at least when you first purchase them.
Thank you.
Okay, clerk, can I have a roll call on the motion for reconsideration?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
Motion
Thank you, Council.
we now need.
So can we now have a motion to accept that resolution? Can you tell me the number again?
5821.
821. Can I have a motion to approve?
So be it.
Second.
Second. Clerk, can I have a roll call?
It's moved by Councilman McCray, seconded by Vice President Good. Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Ms. Ransom?
Councilwoman Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Councilman Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
That is unanimous. Resolution passes.
Thank you. All right, we'll now move to general comments. Total of 60 minutes has been allocated for all public comments to be presented. If you wish to be heard, hit the hand icon. You'll be unmuted. Give your name and address for the record. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes. The floor is now open. Good evening, Ms. Winkle.
Hi, this is Mary Barwinkle, 1785 Sleepy Hollow Lane. And I was sitting on my hands that whole discussion about 058-21. I'm in favor of the administration's position on that. I mean, I think that for one thing, we have a lot of debt in Plainfield, and it's not a bad thing to have debt, but we have bondholders and we have Moody's giving us a good bond rating. And if we decide that we're going to overturn the state mandated rate for the amount of interest that you have to charge for overdue taxes, we're going to be a total island out there. So, and what that means is if we can't get our great bond rating that the MAP administration has managed to get, like we are going to end up paying higher interest on all of our bond debt. And I have to tell one story. Like, I've been here for a very long time, and my old friend Bill Reed, whom I loved as a human, and but questioned for some of his comments on city council, like one time had a huge conversation with David Marshall, who was there that day, about changing this rate after David Marshall had already advertised a tax sale with these rates in it. And, you know, I mean, it's just, this is a statutory thing. You have to do it. We're not trying to be mean to people. It's just the way that it has to be. So, you know, I'm a longtime resident of Plainfield. I spent 25 years in the banking industry as a lawyer, and I can't agree with the administration more on this thing. On the other hand, all of my city council friends, I love that you're always trying to protect. We have a very hard to protect group of humans in Plainfield. I mean, it's not a rich place, and I really think you're great to try to help them. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay.
William Michelson, 556 Belvedere Avenue. Can you hear me? Thank
Yes,
you.
we can.
Okay, for those that don't know me, I'm the chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission. One of my few pleasures during the pandemic has been walking. Most of this town is a great neighborhoods to walk in, and this year I can't go anywhere else, so I really like to do that. And I have found that the condition of the sidewalks throughout the city is absolutely disgraceful. So I'm asking that the administration put a plan together to deal with this. Now, to be more specific, there are two very common problems. One is where tree roots have raised a part of the sidewalk, and the other was where the drainage is very poor, and there's always puddles, and in cold weather you get sheets of ice. In some cases, it's a matter of simply enforcing the property maintenance code and giving citations to homeowners. It would probably raise a lot of money, but I'm more interested in getting them to fix the problem rather than pay. The other part of the problem is where there isn't really somebody that can be held to do the repairs, either because they don't have the money or because the property is abandoned or foreclosed or whatever. At my commission meeting next week, we're going to be talking about this year's grant applications, because we usually do an application every year to the State Historic Preservation Office. And we've received grants several times to try to help both to organize a program like this and to get the work done where somebody else is not going to do the work. There is a second problem that I've also noticed every time I go for a walk, which is that we have more dead trees and tree trunks and stumps than anyone ever wants to see. And they've got to come down, but it's the same thing. Property owners are not paying attention to it because they don't want to pay for it. And of course, there are plenty of people who can't pay for it, or we cannot really approach someone. So I'd like to request that a program be studied and put together to tackle these two problems. I'd be very happy to cooperate in it because I've been involved in many programs here. And I hope to get a grant that can attack some of this, but that's limited to the historic districts. I can't do the rest of the city. So please, I don't know if any of this has been brought to council's attention before, but it needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, Mrs. Popper. Name and address for the record.
Hi, it's Jennifer Popper, 816 Dixie Lane. I have something really quick. Can you hear me? Is it okay?
Yes, yeah, we hear you.
Okay. I noticed on the meeting schedule on the website that the video from the last meeting has not been posted. Is that going to be the norm now, or is that just an oversight for the time being?
At the conclusion of public comments, I'll let the clerk address that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hearing and seeing no more, I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposition or abstentions? Public comment is now closed. I see Mr. Clerk, I don't see his face, but did you hear the question?
I did. It is not the norm. I'll work with IT to see what the issue is, and we'll try to get that video posted as soon as possible. Generally, the video for the council meeting is posted within the same week as the meeting. So we hope to get that posted as soon as possible.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I just have one quick question, Council. Director Dabney, could you give me just a quick update on the Prospect paving project? I know it got delayed because of the historic corner issue, and then they're doing some of the utility work a couple of weeks ago. And I know now we're kind of in a winter, but I was wondering what the planned reschedule for that is, considering the weather, and also if we were able to get that grant money moved to this year, because I know that was grant funded, and a lot of times that has to be spent in that year.
Good question, Councilman. It's still in the process. The grant, we have a meeting coming up on the 29th of January before the state Historic Preservation Commission regarding that whole location. After that meeting, we'll look to move forward in the spring, somewhat with the project, if everything as well.
So we still have the funds to use, and et cetera.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Hey, Sean, go ahead.